I thought the man who moved in next door was just another neighbor die. I didn't know he already knew my wife, or that she was waiting for me to catch them. It started the day after we put the fence in. A clean 6-foot cedar panel running the length of the yard. Fresh, blonde wood with that sweet, sharp scent that fades in a week. We talked about it for years, privacy from the back road, a way to keep the dog in. But like most things in our marriage, it only happened when she finally wanted it. She brought it up on a Thursday. By Saturday, it was built. That's when the new guy moved in. I remember because he pulled up in a charcoal gray SUV while I was still sweeping up the sawdust. He parked at the curb instead of the driveway, something I thought was odd at the time, and sat there for a few minutes, just staring at the house like it was unfamiliar, like he was rehearsing something. Then he got out. Tall, lean, maybe mid-30s like me, but with the kind of presence that makes people straighten up a little. Casual clothes, but expensive casual. You don't wear boots like that unless you want people to think you don't care about appearances, which, of course, means you care a lot. He introduced himself as Cal, no last name. Just Cal. His handshake was firm but relaxed, the kind that makes you question your own grip. He looked me in the eye when he spoke, but only just long enough to register it. Then he'd drift, as if something else always had his attention. I told him welcome to the neighborhood, pointed out where the trash pickup was, made some joke about HOA fees. He smiled politely, but didn't laugh. My wife came out halfway through the conversation. She had that look she gets when she wants to seem effortless, sunglasses perched on her head, arms crossed lightly, one foot angled slightly inward like she's shy. It's not intentional. She does it without thinking. Cole turned to her and smiled. And that smile, Jesus. Not flirty, not sleazy, just warm. That practiced, confident warmth that people mistake for charm. And to be fair, it was charming. I watched the way her posture shifted, the way her voice softened half a note when she said her name. Aaron, she said, smiling like she was suddenly 17 again. Nice to meet you. That was the first time I felt something strange. Not suspicion, just a flicker of something I couldn't place. A low hum in the background. She asked if he needed help moving in. I offered to lend a dolly. He said no, thank you. Most of the heavy lifting was already done. Looking back, I don't remember seeing any movers. No U-Haul. Just the SUV and a few sealed boxes he carried in himself. The first week passed without much else. We'd wave from across the driveway. I'd see him out back sometimes, shirt off, digging in the garden beds the previous owner left to rot. Erin noticed. She commented on it more than once, how rare it was for guys like that to care about flowers. She liked his taste in landscaping. Said it made the block feel more alive. Then she offered him dinner. I was at work late that night, one of those end-of-quarter chaos storms you can't leave early from. She texted me around 6, invited Cal over. Just being neighborly, smiley face. We'll save you a plate. I didn't think anything of it. When I got home around 9, the kitchen was spotless. A few wine glasses in the sink, 2 forks in the drying rack, and a single chair at the table with a folded napkin still resting on the seat. I ate my reheated chicken in silence while she scrolled through something on her phone, feet curled beneath her on the couch. How was it? I asked, mouth half full. She looked up, surprised I'd spoken. What? Dinner. With Cal. Oh. Nice. He's funny. Smart. Used to live in Portland, apparently. Some kind of consulting thing. She didn't offer more. I didn't press. That became a pattern. I'd hear his name once or twice a week, always in passing, never emphasized. He was just around. The guy who helped her carry in groceries when it rained. The one who waved while mowing his lawn at the exact same time every Saturday. The one who apparently just happened to be jogging when she went on her morning walks. But the real shift came with the fence. It wasn't even a big change, not at first. Just little things. I'd come home, and the side gate would be open when I knew I had latched it. Aaron started spending more time outside, trimming hedges, raking leaves that didn't need raking, always near the back corner where our yards met. Sometimes I'd look out the window and see her standing there, like she was waiting for something, or someone. And Cal? He always seemed to know when to appear. They never touched. Not once. Not that I saw. But you could feel it, that undercurrent. That low-level energy that makes your stomach twist for no reason. I started watching more closely. Then came the day I found his coffee mug in our dishwasher. I asked about it. She said she borrowed it while chatting in the yard and forgot to return it. Simple. Logical. Forgettable. But I didn't forget. The mug stayed in the cabinet for 3 more weeks. I put it on a lower shelf, behind the old thermoses, just to see if she'd move it. She didn't. But 2 days later, it was gone. That night, I asked if she'd given it back. She blinked. Confused. What? The mug. The one with the forest print. You gave it back to Cal. Oh, yeah, I guess. I don't remember. What? I shrugged. No reason. But it was the first time she lied to me. Because I'd already checked. It wasn't in his sink. It wasn't on his porch. And I know, because I went over that morning, said I'd received a package for him by mistake. And while he signed the delivery slip I'd printed off from my office, I scanned the kitchen behind him. The mug was still on our shelf, right where she thought I wouldn't look. And that's when the hum became a sound. Just a faint static in the back of my mind. Persistent. Growing. Not enough to accuse. Not enough to confront. Just enough to keep me up at night. The kind of sound you only notice when everything else goes quiet. It was a Thursday evening when I first noticed the shed light on. We'd been in that house 6 years. Long enough to know which bulbs flickered, which doors swelled in summer, which floorboards creaked when you walked barefoot after midnight. The shed in the back corner had always been more of a storage dump than anything useful. Rusted hedge clippers, a broken leaf blower, some paint cans with cracked lids. No one had touched it in months, maybe years. So when I glanced out the bedroom window and saw the soft amber glow seeping through the slats in the door, I froze. I hadn't been in there. Neither had Erin. And I would have heard her if she had. I watched for a full minute, waiting for movement. Nothing. No sound. Just the light. As if someone had gone in, turned it on, and disappeared. Did you go out back? I asked her from the bathroom doorway. She was sitting at her vanity, removing her makeup. Her routine was always the same. Toner, serum, then that little tub of cream she kept in the fridge because she liked the way it cooled her skin. She didn't look at me when she answered. No. What? Shed lights on. She paused. Only slightly. But I noticed. Maybe it's the sensor. There's no sensor. Now she looked up, met my eyes in the mirror. Huh. Weird. I nodded slowly. Yeah. Weird. I went down to check. The air was cool and still, the kind of stillness that makes sound travel too clearly. My footsteps across the grass felt loud. I opened the shed door and stood there, waiting for something, anything. A noise, a shape, a shift in the air. But there was nothing. Just tools. Cobwebs. Dust dancing in the bulb's weak yellow light. I flipped the switch off and closed the door behind me, slower than necessary. Back inside, Erin had already climbed into bed, and when I slid in beside her, she didn't reach for me like she used to. No wordless goodnight. No brush of her hand across my chest. She just turned away. That was when I started listening. Not out of paranoia, at least, that's what I told myself, but out of instinct. A kind of internal recalibration. Like a dog cocking its head at a sound you can't hear. I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, listening for the creak of the back step, the faint click of the side door latch. Nothing ever came. Just silence. Deep and unnatural. Except once. It was a week later when I heard the laugh. It was soft, almost swallowed by the wind, but it was there. A man's laugh. Not loud. Not prolonged. just a short breath of amusement. I sat up in bed instantly. Erin wasn't beside me. Her pillow was still warm. I went downstairs barefoot, avoiding the spots that groaned. The living room was dark. The kitchen too. But the back door, the one that leads to the patio, was cracked open, just enough to let in the night. I pushed it open slowly. There she was, sitting on one of the deck chairs, legs folded under her, holding a wine glass in her lap. Alone, or so it seemed. I looked past her toward the fence. No one. The yard beyond ours was dark. Cal's lights were off. His car wasn't in the driveway. "You're up," she said, without turning. I stepped outside. The air had that sharp autumn bite, enough to make your breath visible. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "You?" She shrugged. "Just needed air." I sat across from her. We didn't speak for a long moment. I kept scanning the fence. Every part of me was alert, as if waiting for something to move. But the night stayed still. "Did you hear someone?" I asked. She looked at me then, really looked. "What do you mean?" "A voice. A laugh." Her expression didn't change. "No. Maybe the neighbors." Her voice was too even, measured. I nodded, even though I didn't believe her. The next day, I bought a security camera. I didn't tell her. Just a small one, disguised in a motion light, aimed directly at the back fence and the shed. I set it to alert me on my phone whenever it detected movement. At first, I told myself it was just to ease my own mind, to stop the guessing. But then came Sunday. She left in the morning, said she was meeting her sister for brunch, which wasn't unusual. Erin and her sister talked almost daily. But an hour later, I got a notification on my phone. Motion detected, backyard. I opened the feed, and there she was. Erin. In the yard. Alone, or so it appeared at first. She was standing near the back corner, the spot where our yard met Cal's. Her body was angled just out of frame, but the way she leaned forward, just slightly, just enough, told me she was speaking to someone. There was no audio, just the image. She laughed, reached up and twisted a strand of hair around her finger. That small gesture, it was the nail. That's how she used to act around me, 10 years ago. Back when she still blushed when I touched her wrist. When we couldn't go 2 hours without texting. That version of her had been gone for years. And now she was back. But not for me. She turned then, and for a brief moment I caught a glimpse of his shoulder. Just over the fence. Just a sliver of him. Enough. When she came home later, I didn't say a word. I played dumb. I even asked how her sister was. She said fine. Said they had too much food. Said they cried a little over some childhood memory. I nodded. I smiled. And I lied right back. That night, I rewound the footage frame by frame. Watched the way her lips moved. Tried to read them. I couldn't. But I didn't need to. I started keeping a journal. Writing down every interaction. Every glance. Every time Cal's trash can was placed closer to our side of the curb than his. Every time Erin got a text and tilted her phone away from me just slightly. And then came the gloves. Black leather. Slim fit. Men's. I found them on the dryer, sitting neatly folded on top of a pile of towels. Not mine. I asked her, casual as I could. "You get new gloves?" She looked up from her laptop. Blinked once. "What? These?" I held them up. She frowned. "No. Maybe yours." "They're not." She paused, then shrugged. "Maybe I grabbed someone else's by mistake. At brunch." And just like that, she turned back to her screen. The conversation was over. But something inside me wasn't. The gloves went into my office drawer. Hidden. Quiet. Like evidence. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to miss the sound again. There was a door in our house that we never used. It led to the basement. Not a finished one, just old concrete, low ceilings, cobwebs, and an outdated furnace that wheezed louder every winter. We kept storage boxes down there. Christmas lights. A cracked mirror I'd promised to throw out 2 years ago. Erin hated the place. Said it smelled like mildew and bad dreams. For years, she'd refused to go down alone. So when I found it open, I stopped breathing. It was late, past midnight. I'd come downstairs to grab a water after pretending to sleep next to her for almost an hour. She'd passed out fast, or pretended to. The kind of stillness that feels too deliberate. Her breathing was deep, but there was a tension in her jaw I couldn't unsee. And when I rounded the corner into the hallway, I saw it. The basement door ajar by maybe 2 inches. The light was off. No sound. But the door had been shut. I was sure of it. I walked toward it slowly. Every hair on my arm stood up. I felt ridiculous, like a kid afraid of a closet. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Not just the door, but the air. It felt charged. I reached for the knob and pulled it open. Darkness. My hand fumbled along the inside wall until it found the switch. The bulb blinked once, then lit with a low, yellow hum. Empty stairs, just like always. But halfway down, something caught my eye. A footprint. Half a sole, smudged in faint dust on the concrete step. Too large to be Erin's. Too fresh to be mine. I didn't go further. Not that night. I shut the door, locked it, first time I'd ever bothered, and stood there for a long minute, hands still on the knob, listening to the silence press back against me. The next day, I waited until Erin left for her yoga class. She never missed Thursdays. Said it helped her reset. The moment she backed out of the driveway, I grabbed a flashlight and headed downstairs. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe a jacket, a cigarette, but something obvious and incriminating. Instead, I found something worse. The dust was disturbed in a pattern, like someone had walked a slow loop around the far wall where we stacked old furniture, an armchair, a coat rack, a plastic tub of out-of-season clothes. And behind it all, there was something new. A narrow piece of drywall, leaned against the wall, covering a crawl space we'd never used. I moved it aside. Inside was nothing but dark, hollow silence. No marks. No items. But the floor was cleaner inside than out. Less dust. No cobwebs. Like someone had been in and out. Recently. I backed out slowly. Replaced the drywall. Didn't touch anything else. Later that day, I casually asked Erin if she'd been in the basement looking for her winter boots. She said no. Barely looked up from her tea. You locked the door, she added. Weird. Yeah. Just felt like it. She nodded. Didn't push. That was when I knew for sure. There was a rhythm to her now. A system. A quiet choreography of lies and half-truths. I started testing her. Small things. I moved her scarf from the hook by the door to the hall closet. Watched her look for it the next morning and pretend not to notice it was gone. I asked about her schedule, then cross-checked it with her phone when she left it charging. She deleted her call history every night. That had never been her habit. Then, a week later, something else changed. Cal stopped appearing. No waves in the driveway. No jogging in the morning. His car didn't move for 3 days. Trash bins stayed full. Porch lights off. For all purposes, it was like he vanished. I waited for Erin to mention it. She didn't. On the third night, I asked, "You haven't seen Cal lately?" She looked up from her book, blinked once. "No. I think he's out of town." "Oh." She nodded. "Yeah. I saw him carrying luggage Tuesday." That was a lie. Tuesday night, I'd been parked 2 blocks down, watching our street from the shadows. His car never moved. No one came or went. She must have felt my eyes on her, because she added, "He mentioned a work trip. Something about Atlanta. Consulting thing." I nodded slowly, then went to the kitchen and poured myself a drink. The moment she went to bed, I went back to the camera feed. Nothing since Monday night. But then I remembered the gloves. I hadn't checked the drawer in over a week. I opened it now, suddenly unsure if they were even real or if I'd imagined them. They were gone. just an empty space where they used to be. And that was when I decided to knock. The next morning, I waited until Erin left again. She said she was going to the grocery store. Said she wouldn't be long. Her tone was light, but her keys shook a little when she grabbed them. She kissed my cheek and said, "Want anything?" I said no. She pulled out of the driveway like nothing was wrong. The moment she turned the corner, I crossed the lawn to Cal's house. I knocked once, twice. No answer. I cupped my hands against the glass and peered inside. Stillness. A couch with a blanket folded neatly. No signs of life. I circled to the side gate. It was unlocked. Backyard empty. But the shed, his shed, was open an inch. I stepped closer, half expecting to hear movement. Nothing. Inside was clean. Too clean. No tools. Just a metal shelf with one object. A small black duffel bag. I didn't touch it. Instead, I snapped a photo with my phone and backed out. Something was happening here. Something careful. Controlled. I returned home just as Erin pulled in, grocery bags in the back seat. I helped her carry them inside. We didn't speak much. Later that night, while brushing her teeth, she caught me watching her in the mirror. She smirked. "What?" I shrugged. "Nothing." But I knew now. Knew it wasn't just an affair. It was something else. Something they were building together, one lie at a time. And somewhere in the walls of this life, I thought I knew. A door had opened. A door I'd never seen before. And whatever was behind it, it was already in motion. The first truly strange thing I found was hidden in her boots. It was a Sunday afternoon, gray and cold. Erin was out running errands. I waited until I heard the garage door rattle shut before going into the closet. I didn't have a plan, just that familiar crawl under the skin, that sense of something sitting just beyond the veil of what I was supposed to believe. I'd gone through her phone before. Her email. Her car. All clean. Too clean. It was the digital version of a staged home, presentable but unnatural. And Erin wasn't a digital person anyway. She still wrote grocery lists on notepads. Still used the same paper planner she'd had since college. That's why I went to the closet. I started with the obvious: pockets, purses, her winter coat. Nothing. Then I turned to the floor. She had 6 pairs of boots lined neatly along the wall. I picked the black suede ones she never wore anymore. I reached in and felt something against the sole, thin, stiff, folded paper. I pulled it out slowly. It was a list. Handwritten. Folded into quarters. No date. No title. Just a column of phrases in her handwriting, only it wasn't the way she usually wrote. Her usual script was loopy, casual. This was sharper. Cleaner. Like she'd tried to disguise it. The list read: blue key. 3rd drawer. Not yet. Check batteries. Bury receipts. Fence post equals. Ask if he remembers the cabin. Gloves. Return. No calls from house. March 19th window. Tell him soon. There were more, some scratched out, others circled. I stood there holding the paper like it might burn me. I read it again. And again. It didn't make sense. Not in any immediate, narrative way. But I recognized pieces, breadcrumbs. The gloves. The fence. No calls from house. Was that why she always stepped outside to make phone calls now? The cabin, we had gone once, years ago. A rental in the mountains. Nothing remarkable about it. But she hadn't mentioned it in years. And then there was tell him soon. Tell me what? I put the list in my wallet, then restuffed the boots so it looked untouched. When she came home, I was in the garage, organizing tools I didn't need. She poked her head in, smiled like everything was fine. Hey, I picked up stuff for dinner. Chicken okay? I nodded. That night, I watched her like someone trying to memorize a stranger. The way she moved. The way she stirred the sauce too long. The way she looked over my shoulder once, at the window, like she was expecting someone to be there. And all the while, the list was burning in my pocket. The next day, I checked the fence. It was early, too early for her to be up. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way down the edge of the yard, stopping at each post. Nothing unusual. Until the 12th one. The post near the corner where our yard met Cal's. It looked fine, but when I pushed on it, it gave slightly. Not loose, just hollow. I knelt and ran my hand along the base. Found the latch by accident, a tiny metal hook buried under a clump of dead grass. When I unhooked it, the panel swung inward like a door. Behind it, a narrow compartment. Inside, a small plastic bag, tightly sealed. I pulled it out. Inside the bag were two things, a burner phone and a folded photo. The phone was dead. I slipped it into my coat. The photo was old, grainy, but I knew what I was looking at. Me and Aaron, standing on the cabin porch, arms around each other, smiling, young, happy. But we weren't alone. In the corner of the photo, partly obscured by a tree, was a man, out of focus, wearing sunglasses. And the moment I saw him, my chest tightened. It was Cal, 10 years younger. But it was him. That night, I didn't confront her. I made pasta. We watched a show. I even laughed when she did, trying to make the sound real. But my brain wouldn't stop turning. Why did she have a photo from a trip she never mentioned again? Why was he there? I waited until she showered, then took the burner phone into my office. I plugged it into my old charger. When it powered on, the screen showed only one thing. One draft message. No contacts. No calls. Just the message. I opened it. He knows something. Watching more. Tell me what to do. That was all. No date. No recipient. I turned off the phone and stared at the wall. At some point, I heard the shower stop. The door creak open. Her footsteps soft on the floor above me. And suddenly, I realized something that chilled me deeper than anything else so far. She wasn't afraid. Not of me. Not of being caught. Not even of whatever this was. She was waiting. Waiting for me to see it all. Waiting for me to play my part. And I didn't even know the rules. They say you never forget the first time your world breaks. Not bends. Not bruises. Breaks. Until that moment, you tell yourself 1,000 stories to keep the structure upright. She wouldn't. He couldn't. It's not what it looks like. Maybe I'm overthinking. You build excuses the way a child stacks blocks, carefully, hopefully, even as the tower wobbles. But the fall? That comes fast. It started with the blue key. I found it 3 days after I discovered the list. Tucked in the third drawer of her vanity, beneath a box of old earrings she hadn't worn in years. Small. Metallic. Marked with nothing but the letter or scratched crudely into the back. Third drawer. Not yet. That's what the list had said. But now it was. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't match any locks in our house. Not the shed, not the garage, not the old storage trunk in the attic. I tried every one. Nothing. So I carried it in my pocket like it might whisper its secrets if I gave it enough time. That night, she said she was going for a walk. Not unusual. She'd been doing that more lately, twilight strolls with earbuds in and her hair tucked into a beanie, hood up. She claimed it cleared her head, helped her sleep. What struck me was how calm she was. She kissed my cheek like she used to, told me not to wait up. And then she was gone. And I followed. I waited 90 seconds. Enough to avoid suspicion. Then I grabbed my coat, slipped out the side door, and cut through the neighbor's yard to avoid the streetlights. I knew her route. She always walked the loop, down our block, across the trail behind the community center, and then back through the far entrance near the pond. Only this time, she didn't take the loop. She walked 2 blocks, then veered left, toward Cal's house. I crouched behind a line of hedges, hard hammering. The porch light was off, curtains drawn. She stepped up to the door, glanced over her shoulder, once, quick, and then reached into her coat pocket. Pulled out a key. Not the one I found. A different one. Black. Sleek. She unlocked the door and slipped inside. No hesitation. Like she'd done it before. I stood there frozen. 30 seconds. Maybe longer. The air was cold, and I could hear my own breathing. I crossed the street. I didn't go to the front door. I circled around back. The backyard was dark. A single light glowed in the second-floor window, casting a thin line across the lawn. I moved silently, stepping around the flower bed she'd once praised. Past the shed. Up to the back patio. That's when I saw it. The sliding glass door wasn't latched. Just closed. And the curtain only half drawn. I moved closer. And what I saw through the gap didn't feel real. It was the kitchen. Bright. Warm. Like any normal night in any normal house. 2 wine glasses on the counter. A bottle open. And then, her. Leaning against the counter, smiling. Laughing. Shoeless, sweater pulled up slightly at the sleeves. And him. Cal. Standing too close. One hand resting on the counter beside her, the other grazing her hip in that casual, familiar way that doesn't come from newness. It comes from practice. She looked up at him. And then, with no hesitation at all, she kissed him. Not a quick kiss. Not a drunken mistake. Slow. Certain. Like it had happened before. Like it had happened many times. I didn't move. Couldn't. Something inside me ruptured in that moment, not rage, not sadness. Just silence. The kind of silence that sits inside your bones long after sound returns. They pulled apart, still grinning. She said something, I couldn't hear it, but he laughed. Then he reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. And I stepped back. My foot hit a loose stone, and I froze, heart-stopping. But they didn't hear it. I turned and walked away. Not fast. Not slow. Just numb. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking. I didn't go inside right away. I sat on the porch and stared at the sky, trying to replay what I'd just seen in a way that made it hurt less. But there was no version that softened it. She kissed him like she meant it. Like she'd been meaning it for a long, long time. When she came back an hour later, I was already in bed, eyes closed. She moved quietly, took a longer shower than usual, then slid under the covers and whispered, "Good night." I didn't answer. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Pancakes. Music in the kitchen. She even lit one of those vanilla candles she said she hated. Asked if I wanted to go to the farmer's market. I said I had work. She nodded, kissed my cheek again. I let her. And the whole time, the image looped behind my eyes, her lips on his, the way her body leaned toward him, not away. Like he was gravity. The worst part? She looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her in years. And that's when I knew. This wasn't a fling. It was a decision. She had crossed the line, and she wasn't coming back. And I had to decide what I was going to do next. She came home earlier than expected that day. I was sitting at the dining table, staring at nothing, the list unfolded in front of me. The blue key was beside it, along with the burner phone, the photo from the cabin, and the gloves I'd pulled from the back of her car's spare tire compartment an hour earlier. She froze when she saw the table. Her keys fell from her hand. For a long time, neither of us said a word. She didn't ask how I found it all. She didn't even look at the items directly. She just kept her eyes on me, calculating. Not in fear. Not in guilt. Just measuring. I finally broke the silence. How long? Her mouth parted slightly, but nothing came. Her breath caught. She blinked once, slowly, then said, "Does it matter?" Wrong answer. I stood. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, one leg crossed over the other, perfectly poised. That same poise she always had when she was hiding something. "It started before he moved in," she said calmly. "If that's what you're really asking." I felt something shift in my chest, like a loose beam cracking deeper into the foundation. "He was never just the neighbor," I said. It wasn't a question. "No," she glanced at the photograph. "You don't remember, do you?" I looked down at it again. Cal in the corner, barely visible. A background ghost in our memory. That cabin. That weekend. I had remembered it as uneventful. Quiet. She tapped the table lightly with one finger. We met there. You were passed out on the couch from too much bourbon. He was staying next door. Came over to borrow firewood. We talked for an hour. That's all. But I remembered him. And 10 years later, he remembered me. I stared at her. So what? You planned this? No, she said. Not at first. I picked up the blue key, turned it in my fingers. Then what's this? What does it open? She hesitated. Just a beat. Then, the storage unit. What storage unit? She looked down at her lap, the first sign of anything resembling discomfort. It's in his name. I've never been. But we talked about it. About what we might need. If we left. If you left me. Her silence was the only answer I needed. I laughed once, sharp and hollow. Jesus. I wasn't planning to at first, she said again. It just happened. No, I said. Affairs don't just happen. You build them. You grow them. One choice at a time. That struck her. She inhaled deeply, eyes flickering just enough for me to know it landed. I gave you everything, I said, my voice low. And maybe that was the mistake. Because somewhere along the way, you started needing something else. Someone else. You stopped seeing me, she said, barely a whisper. I froze. And for the first time, I let myself consider it. Not excuse it. Not justify it. But consider it. Because deep down, I knew what she meant. Our marriage had become a series of routines. Polite silences. Distracted dinners. Her distance hadn't come from nowhere. But betrayal? This level of deception? You never gave me a chance to fix it, I said. She looked at me then, tears finally rising. Not falling, rising. Held back. Controlled. I didn't want it fixed, she said. I wanted out. And that was it. The truth, plain and violent. No more games. No more crumbs. She stood up slowly, smoothing her coat. You don't have to fight me, she said gently. Not about the house. Not about the rest. I'll leave. I'll take care of it. I watched her walk to the door. Her steps didn't falter. Right before she opened it, I said, You rehearsed all this, didn't you? She turned. This version of me, I continued. The one who wouldn't yell. The one who wouldn't lose control. The one who'd make it easier for you to walk out. She didn't speak. You needed me calm, I said, so you could leave clean. The corner of her mouth twitched, just slightly. A silent confession. And then she left. Just like that. No suitcase. No final kiss. No apologies. Just the click of the door behind her. 3 months passed. No messages. No attempts to explain. Just papers delivered by her attorney, simple, clean, efficient. She didn't want alimony. She didn't want a drawn-out war. It was like she had already moved on years before. And maybe she had. I kept the burner phone in a locked drawer. I never turned it on again. Never tried the blue key at any storage facility. I didn't want to know what was inside. Some nights, I still sit by the sliding door. Not waiting for her. Just remembering. The way a house feels when someone is still pretending to love you inside it. Cal moved out a month after she left. No for sale sign. Just gone. The shed stood empty. The yard grew wild. I kept the gloves. And the list. As a reminder that nothing unravels all at once. It happens in pieces. A drawer. A footprint. A laugh in the dark. And by the time you open your eyes, the person you love is already gone. She's just waiting for you to notice. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.